It's wonderful to see you all here this evening for a grand occasion and raising money for charity. It is my pleasure now to invite to the rostrum the President of the Leeds Law Society, Mr. Luke Corcoran, who will give his welcome address.
Well, don't you all screw up nice. Anyway, right, here we go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, my lords and ladies, distinguished guests, and to those of you already wondering how long these speeches are going to be before you can sit down properly and eat your dinner, welcome to the Leeds Law Society Annual Dinner 2026. Friends, it's great to see so many of you here on this wonderful occasion. It's a real honour to address you as President of Leeds Law Society as I draw towards the end of my presidential term. I must begin with some thanks. A particular thanks goes to all of you visiting Leeds this evening, in particular guests from the Yorkshire Union of Law Societies, our guests from the Joint 5 Law Societies, the Leeds Junior Lawyer Division, and our distinguished guests of judges and dignitaries. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Thank you also to our sponsors this evening and many other occasions like it. Simply wouldn't happen without your support. A note of thanks to Martin House, my Presidential Charity of the Year. They will speak shortly and tell you of the amazing work that they do. But I'm grateful for their engagement with us over the course of my presidency. And I invite you all to give generously this evening in our raffle later on. It's been another successful year for Leeds Law Society. We held the biggest ever legal walk outside of London, with over 800 walkers raising vital funds for access to Justice Yorkshire. We brought the organisation of Leeds Legal Tech into Leeds Law Society, ensuring that the legal and tech communities of Leeds can continue to work together and achieve more together here in Leeds. We provided training on everything from money laundering to the Employment Rights Act. We hosted the National Law Society 3 times, including support of the important Law Society's in-house ethics framework. We continued our focus on D&I. We marched once more in Pride. We held events on the menopause, and we held our first ever social mobility conference. A truly fantastic event that's begun so many conversations and galvanised action to support social mobility within our profession here in Leeds. So if you came to any of our events this year, whether it was 1 or whether it was 20, thank you so much, and I hope you come to many more in the future. Leeds Law Society only exists for the benefit of the profession, so without your engagement and support, it is truly nothing. I stand here humbled and with great pride as the President of Leeds Law Society. Not the kind of fake humility that is awash on LinkedIn, but heartfelt humility. I grew up in the suburb of Armley in West Leeds. I haven't moved that far away, about a mile away in Lower Wortley. And if you told people back then that I'd stand here one day as President of Leeds Law Society, as a boy from Armley, they'd probably have told you politely and suggested that you lower your expectations. Being President of Leeds Law Society is the type of thing that many people from Armley might say isn't for the likes of us. They would likely say the same about being a solicitor, but here I am, a solicitor and at least for a short while longer, President of Leeds Law Society. I have my dad to thank for never thinking that any job or any role wasn't for the likes of us. I'm looking back on my career and thinking that 2 very important things happened to me when I moved from high school, a failing school in special measures, which is now a block of flats, which tells you all you need to know, to an excellent 6th form. It was there that I realised that my subpar GCSE results were as much of a product of my high school education as they were of my personal intelligence. All of a sudden, I was surrounded by students who picked up more A's and A stars than you could shake a stick at. But they were no smarter than me, no more able. That built in me the realisation that some people would indeed get ahead faster than I would, but that I couldn't let the reason for that be the lack of my own hard work. That difference also inspired me to dedicate myself to ensuring that once I managed to climb the ladder of the legal profession, that I would help others from different backgrounds climb it too, not kick it out from underneath them. That's why the Social Mobility Conference we held this year was such a passion project for me. But it isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of real steps from passionate people from across the legal sector in Leeds to boost social mobility in our profession. The other key thing that happened to me when I was at 6th form was that I learned a passion for law, purely through a weird quirk of fate. At the open evening for college, I had a firm idea in mind what I would do next, and it wasn't law. I wanted to study graphic design and then become a designer or maybe an architect. I was waiting for a friend on that visit to visit all of the subjects that he wanted to speak to. And I had spoke to the law teacher to kill a bit of time while I was waiting to go and get the bus. The law teacher was sufficiently interesting to make me think, this'll do as my backup choice. Thinking that now would have expected to be needed or called upon. Well, one of my favourite sayings is, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. Sure enough, a few weeks before my GCSE graphics coursework was due to be submitted, a storm blew the roof off of my school, and my coursework was lost in the subsequent flood. True story. My hastily put together replacement mustered a C grade, not the B grade that I needed to study graphics at A level. So, law it was. 20 years on, I am very grateful for that unusual twist of fate. Skip on a few years, and after qualifying in private practice, the time came to move on. On a bit of a flyer and a bit of a wing and a prayer, I applied to work for the government legal department. Somehow, I ended up getting the job, perhaps through some kind of massive mistake by the HR department that's yet to be uncovered. My welcome email arrived from a certain O'Leary Wones CBE. It turns out my new boss was in fact awarded a CBE for being a lawyer, the lead lawyer for leading the legal team that delivered the London 2012 Olympics, no less. I must admit that felt a little bit intimidating as a newly qualified solicitor. But that is the kind of calibre of lawyer that I now call my colleagues. I'm lucky to work with incredible lawyers day in and day out, dedicated to their work and to the public good. I also admit to some personal bias. But on the whole, I quite like lawyers from not just from GLD, but across the whole profession. One of the many joys of being president of Leeds Law Society is to meet so many incredible lawyers in every area of law, from the most junior to the most senior, all of them hardworking and dedicated. They're committed to achieving the best for their clients, and in doing so in an honest way, with integrity, decency, and with respect for the rule of law. They are part of what makes our country one of the finest places to live and to practice law in the world. It's that integrity and decency that the world needs more now, more than ever. Now is not the time to walk back on the steps that we have taken to make our profession and our society a place where all are welcome, no matter what their background. We must march on, not step back. As the great Dr. King once said, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. But as President Obama reminded us, it doesn't bend just on its own. It bends because we pull it in the right direction. He went on to say, what keeps me hopeful during times like these is being surrounded by people who are doing just that. It's been a real pleasure as president to see people doing just that across our profession and across the country. I want to dedicate some of this speech to the many unsung heroes of our profession. Growing up, I didn't know any solicitors or any barristers, but my mum worked as a secretary in various professional offices for over 4 decades, and she taught me one of my most important lessons, that the receptionists, the secretaries, the typing pool, the post room, and all the other people who don't get the kudos, the glory, or the attention are just as important to work with as any senior partner or any managing director. They know how everything works, where the skeletons are buried, who everyone is, and they will bail you out of more minor disasters than you will be able to count. Knowing that in advance of starting my career was truly my superpower. So my junior colleagues based over there in the corner, let me pass that lesson on to you. The next time the team secretary helps you unjam the printer when you are in the middle of preparing a court bundle within 10 minutes of the DX leaving the office for the day, again, true story, make sure you say a big thank you, not once but twice. Once for the help on that particular occasion, and the second time for every other time that they have helped you and your colleagues without enough thanks. Then maybe at some point, treat them to a coffee or some chocolate, or maybe both. This is a good point of my speech to say thank you to the 2 unsung heroes of Leeds Law Society. That's the 2 Rachels. As president of Leeds Law Society, I'm just... Thank you. As president of Leeds Law Society, I'm just the face. The real brains and brawns of the operation are Rachel Windle and Rachel Sims, who are both here this evening. They work so hard to make our society a success, and I cannot thank them enough for the support they've given me during my term as president. I cannot conclude my speech without some final thank yous. A thank you must go to my incredible friends and colleagues for joining me to help celebrate on this special evening. You have all in various ways had a big impact on my career and my time as president, so thank you to you all. To two of you in particular, who I won't name. Thank you for showing up in the proper attire. Only the three of us will know how unlikely that truly was. A particular thank you also to my brother John, who is sat on a table with 10 lawyers as the only non-lawyer, a true gift as a brother to me. A thank you also to my sister-in-law Susie. Without you telling me that GLD were hiring in Leeds all that time ago, the last decade would have looked a lot different. Finally, my biggest thank yous go to the two most incredible people in my life. My wonderful son Joseph, who hopefully by now is asleep, but probably not. And my beautiful wife Amy. They say behind every great man has a great woman behind him. Amy is proof that some mediocre men have great women behind them too. You are my rock and my joy. You've always supported me when I've doubted myself, and I'm nothing without you. And I'll conclude my speech by saying this profession, this wonderful city, are both full of people who care deeply about justice, fairness, and each other. It's been the privilege of a lifetime to serve as your president. So let's celebrate that tonight, even if I only have a glass of water. Ladies and gentlemen, please raise your glasses and join me in a toast to Leeds Law Society. Leeds Law Society. Thank you and have a wonderful evening. Good night.
Thank you, Mr. Corcoran.